The 17th of August 1966. Nui Dat, Phuoc Tuy Province, South Vietnam. Private Michael Mick H. 3 Squadron SSR, crouches behind a sandbag wall as the humidity clings to his forearms like wet cloth. The base is still half-built. Fresh cut timber. Raw earth. That smell of diesel and red laterite mud. A watch tick somewhere. Not his. Someone else's. Too loud. Then the first mortar round lands. The blast is close enough that grit bites into his teeth. The next impact shakes corrugated iron like a drum skin. Mick's hands go to his weapon, except it isn't the long, familiar L1A1. It's short. UN Australian. Black metal. A collapsing stock that rattles faintly. He didn't sign for it through normal channels. Nobody did. After the shelling, men count craters and casualties. Then they count something else. Rounds expended. Engagement distances. How quickly a patrol can break contact. And quietly, down in the jungle line, the regiment's armorers begin asking a dangerous question. What if this strange American carbine is exactly what SAS patrols have been missing? Australia's Vietnam War expanded sharply in 1965 to 1966, when Canberra shifted from advisory teams to a self-contained formation, 1st Australian Task Force, 1 ATF, at Nui Dat, established in May 1966. The intent was clear: operate independently in Phuoc Tuy Province, with Australian infantry, artillery, armour, aviation support, and, critically, Special Forces reconnaissance that could move beyond the wire and report what the big units couldn't see. That reconnaissance burden fell to the Special Air Service Regiment. The Australian War Memorial's unit summary notes that each of the 3 Sabre squadrons completed 2 Vietnam tours between 1966 and 1971, operating as the eyes and ears of 1 ATF, patrolling not only Phuoc Tuy but also Bien Hoa, Long Con, and Binh Tuy. Phuoc Tuy was not a battlefield of sweeping front lines. It was an ecosystem of rubber plantations, mangrove edges, creek lines, dense scrub, and steep jungle massifs like the Nui Din Hills and later the Mae Dao Mountains, terrain that punished weight, punished noise, and punished slow reaction time. Patrols often moved in small numbers, at walking pace, reading the bush like a language, broken twigs, boot prints, a cooking fire's faint ash smell. The adversary, primarily Viet Cong local forces and main force units, backed by North Vietnamese capability elsewhere, leveraged ambush tactics, prepared bunker systems, and rapid dispersal. In that world, the first seconds mattered more than the first 100 meters. Australian regular infantry leaned on the L1A1 self-loading rifle, accurate, hard-hitting, dependable. But for SAS patrols, the L1A1 was also long, heavy, and awkward when crawling, climbing, or trying to snap the muzzle through a thicket without snagging. Meanwhile, American forces were experimenting with shorter, lighter carbines for helicopter crews and special operations. By late June 1966, 3 squadrons' first contacts had already begun, including the 25th of June incident in which the squadron was fired on by Viet Cong. The learning curve was immediate. The war's demands were narrowing toward one urgent requirement: a compact weapon that let a reconnaissance patrol break contact instantly, without turning the jungle into a wrestling match between branches and barrel length. A SAS patrol in Vietnam lives in contradictions. It must be quiet, but ready to become violently loud. It must carry enough ammunition to survive an ambush, but move like a shadow. It must hit hard, but also be short enough to bring into action inside scrub so thick you can smell the sap. The core problem was not firepower in the abstract. It was geometry. Long rifles catch vines. Long sights disappear into foliage. Long weapons swing wide when a point man pivots around a tree. And in a break contact drill, a second of muzzle snag is a lifetime. Australia's standard long arm, the L1A1 FAL pattern rifle, was excellent for conventional infantry tasks. But patrol troops wanted something closer to an extension of the body. Meanwhile, the enemy's common rifle, the AK-47 family, delivered a different set of advantages: compactness, controllable automatic fire, and rugged handling in harsh conditions. The jungle didn't reward elegance, it rewarded forgiveness. And across Allied forces, the experimentation was messy. A unit might carry one weapon for range, another for volume, and a third for specialized tasks. The result: inconsistent loads, inconsistent handling, inconsistent outcomes. Comparative table, field reality, not brochure language. British Commonwealth weapon, L1A1 SLR, 7.62 by 51 mm. Problem: length and handling in thick bush, slow transitions in close quarters. Failure example: snagging and awkward muzzle management during rapid break contact. American weapon, M16A1, 5.56 by 45 mm. Problem: full-length rifle still long for patrol work. Early war reputation for stoppages left many skeptical. Balance not ideal when crawling and climbing. German-Japanese analog, contextual comparison not directly present in Vietnam, but the concept matters. Compact SMGs and carbines historically win in dense terrain because they present faster and clear obstacles. Australian need: a weapon that is short, light, fast to shoulder, controllable on automatic, and still compatible with modern rifle ammunition and optics attachments as they emerge. What the SAS needed wasn't merely a smaller rifle. It was a tool that allowed speed without sacrificing lethality at the distances most contacts actually occurred, often well inside 100 meters. That requirement points directly to a particular family of weapons, Colt's compact AR-15 derivatives, marketed under one umbrella name: CAR-15. Source: the CAR-15 story begins as a marketing idea and becomes, almost accidentally, a special operations icon. In 1965, Colt tried to sell the M16 platform as a modular family. Different barrels, different stocks, different roles. The branding, Colt Automatic Rifle 15, was meant to tie the system to Colt rather than Armalite's earlier AR name. Source: but the version that matters for commandos isn't the standard rifle. It's the cut-down carbine that Colt refined after field feedback. The Commando series is where the story turns from catalog concept into combat necessity. Source: and at the center of that refinement is a name that rarely appears in dramatic retellings, but should: Colt engineer Robert Roy. According to American Rifleman, Roy designed and patented a simple two-position telescoping stock system for the CAR-15 line, pragmatic, robust, and far less fiddly than earlier attempts. It's an engineer's solution, not a parade ground one: 2 settings, minimal nonsense, maximum function. The other signature piece is the muzzle device, often called a moderator. It looks like a fat flash hider, but it also increases back pressure to help the short gas system run more reliably, while reducing flash and slightly reducing the sound signature. American Rifleman describes it as a 4¼ steel unit with vent slits and an expansion chamber, part counterweight, part signature control, part reliability fix. This is the point where myth grows. Because the moderator later became legally treated like a suppressor in the United States due to its effect on sound signature, an irony for a component built first to keep a short rifle functioning. By 1966 to 1967, these compact carbines had carved out a niche in American special operations. But Australia's SASR lived inside a different procurement universe. Their weapons culture was practical, improvisational, and deeply shaped by small team patrolling. So when these short Colt carbines begin appearing in the orbit of special operations, through Allied exchange, informal acquisition, and the quiet logic of use what works, they land in receptive hands. Not because they are American. Because they solve a problem the jungle has been screaming for months. Technical breakdown. Let's strip away the romance and look at what a Vietnam-era Colt Commando XM177 family CAR-15 actually is: a compact, select-fire carbine derived from the M16 platform. Core dimensions and weight, key figures. From the CAR-15 specification summary. Barrel length, 11.5 inches, 290 mm, on the XM177E2 pattern. Source. Overall length, XM177E2 about 32.5 inches, 830 mm, stock extended, 29.8 inches, 760 mm, stock retracted. Source. Mass, listed as 5.35 pounds, 2.43 kilograms, in the broad CAR-15 XM177 specification table. Weaponsystems.net lists Commando length as 788 mm extended, 719 mm retracted and weight 2.15 kilograms empty, reflecting variant-specific figures and how different references define configuration. The important takeaway: it's dramatically lighter and shorter than full-length rifles. Caliber and feed. This is not a pistol-caliber submachine gun, despite early nomenclature confusion. It fires 5.56 by 45 mm, commonly the M193 loading in Vietnam-era use. It feeds from standard M16 magazines, 20 and 30-round box magazines, and that logistical commonality is crucial. The compact carbine doesn't require an entirely different ammunition supply. Operating mechanism, step by step. Mechanically, it remains the M16 family's core system, gas-operated, rotating bolt, direct impingement. Here's what that means in plain terms. When the cartridge fires, gas is tapped from the barrel and sent down a tube into the upper receiver. Instead of pushing a separate piston, the gas vents into the bolt carrier group itself, driving it rearward. The bolt unlocks by rotating, extracts and ejects the spent case, compresses the buffer spring, then returns forward under spring pressure to chamber the next round. It's like routing exhaust pressure back into the engine to cycle the action. Efficient, compact, but it dumps fouling where the moving parts live. That fouling issue was known. And elite users compensated by cleaning obsessively. In American Rifleman, John Plaster, writing about Special Operations CAR-15 use, describes how direct impingement blew dirty carbon and hot gas directly into critical moving parts, and notes that meticulous cleaning between missions was routine. The moderator and why it exists. On a short barrel, muzzle blast becomes brutal. Flash becomes conspicuous. And the gas system can become finicky. The CAR-15's distinctive moderator was intended to tame all three problems. Wikipedia describes Colt developing moderators in September 1966 to reduce noise and muzzle flash and increase back pressure, improving reliability, though it also contributed to heavy fouling and tracer yaw issues. American Rifleman adds the human dimension. This moderator also acted as a counterweight, improving the weapon's balance. So the tube on the muzzle isn't just cool. It's an engineering bandage that became a signature. Rate of fire and effective range. Weaponsystems.net places cyclic rate in the 700 to 900 revolutions per minute band. Wikipedia lists an effective range figure of 400 meters, 440 yards, in the spec box, though in practice, combat use often clustered far closer, especially for reconnaissance troops who were fighting to break contact, not hold ground. The ergonomics that mattered to SAS patrols. Short barrel. Collapsing stock. Compact handguards. A weapon that can be carried at the ready for hours without feeling like a fence post. And crucially, presentation speed. The ability to snap the gun from low ready to on target inside a meter-wide tunnel of vegetation. There's also a quiet, practical factor. The collapsible stock makes the weapon easier to handle around vehicles and aircraft. Australia's SAS in Vietnam relied on helicopter insertion and extraction, and anything that reduces snagging inside a Huey matters. Field modification culture. Why this became a SAS weapon even when it wasn't Australian. The historical firearms reenactment write-up highlights a broader truth. SAS teams often carried mixed weapons, including M16A1S, and even an M16A1 fitted with the XM148 grenade launcher in the depiction, reflecting the period's experimentation with compact rifles and underbarrel systems. Source. That culture, adapt, shorten, modify, improvise, made the CAR-15 concept feel natural in SAS hands. Now, if you're finding this interesting, consider subscribing. We are building something here for people who actually care about the details. It takes a second, costs nothing, and helps the channel grow. The Australian War Memorial timeline for 3 Squadron gives us a fixed point. Arrived the 16th of June 1966, moved to Nui Dat the next day, and had first enemy contact on the 25th of June. That sets the stage for what combat effectiveness actually means for SAS. Not massed assaults, but patrol contacts, sudden, sharp, close. Source. Now, here's the problem with telling the CAR-15 story in SASR hands. Much of what's written publicly and cleanly about the CAR-15's combat record comes from American special operations narratives and technical retrospectives. Australia's SAS weapon issue and modification practices in Vietnam are real, but often documented in photographs, oral histories, and unit-level material that isn't always presented as neat, weapon-centric case studies. So what we do, responsibly, is this. We anchor the SAS operational reality using the Australian War Memorial's unit summary, and we anchor the CAR-15's proven field behaviour using detailed primary user testimony from a credible, named source, then show why those characteristics map directly onto SAS needs. What elite users valued: speed, handling, controllability. American Rifleman publishes a first-hand account describing the CAR-15 as the finest combat weapon the author ever used for balance and handiness, and emphasizes its dexterity, a word that tells you this is about handling more than raw ballistics. That dexterity matters most when a patrol is discovered at close range. Picture a 6-man recce element. You're not looking for a stand-up fight. You're looking for information. But when the bush erupts, when the first shot cracks from a hidden position, your job is to create the impression of a larger force, force the enemy's heads down, and disengage. Historical Firearms SASR reenactment write-up describes exactly that logic. Once discovered, the team immediately opens fire to gain fire superiority and buy time for withdrawal, then extracts under support when available. A short, controllable carbine is practically built for that moment. Reload speed and ammunition handling. American Rifleman contains a striking detail. With practice, a user could drop an empty magazine, slam home a fresh one, hit the bolt release, and continue firing in 3 seconds or less. That isn't a party trick. That is a survival margin when the first burst has to be followed by the second, and the third, while moving. Reliability, when maintenance is doctrine. The story most people remember about early M16 family weapons is jams. But special operations users often had a different experience because they treated maintenance as mandatory. In American Rifleman, the author states bluntly that his CAR-15 did not fail him on missions, and attributes that reliability to obsessive cleaning and constant test firing, plus attention to magazine condition, especially feed lips. This aligns with SAS culture. Reconnaissance patrols don't tolerate mystery stoppages. They will carry cleaning rods taped to a weapon if they must. They will do superstitious checks if it buys confidence. The trade-offs: velocity and terminal effect. The compact carbine is not magic. Short barrels cost velocity. That matters. American Rifleman notes the XM177E2's short barrel reduced muzzle velocity compared to the standard rifle, reducing maximum effective range and terminal effects proportionately, yet the author still judged it plenty for short-range engagements. That maps to SAS realities in Vietnam. Most contacts were sudden and close. The jungle compresses distance. Fire discipline and cyclic rate. Weaponsystems.net lists a cyclic rate band of 700 to 900 revolutions per minute, and American Rifleman notes the carbine could run faster than an M16, adding both hit probability and jam risk. For a patrol breaking contact, a high cyclic rate is a double-edged blade. It produces immediate suppression, but it eats ammunition. That, in turn, shapes load carriage. Pattern interruption, the magazine pouch problem. One of the most revealing details in American Rifleman isn't about the gun at all. It's about the logistics system failing to keep up. The author describes a lack of proper pouches and improvisation, stretching canteen covers to carry magazines, adding tape tabs to pull mags free under stress. That is the real world of Special Forces equipment. The weapon evolves faster than the supply system. And units solve it themselves. Why this mattered specifically to Australian SASR? The AWM summary makes clear that SAS operations were wide-ranging and persistent, with emphasis shifting over time between reconnaissance and more aggressive recce ambush activity, particularly in later periods. Source: in those tasks, a short carbine offers faster handling at contact distance, easier movement in dense vegetation, better compatibility with helicopter operations, controllable automatic fire for immediate suppression. And it complements, rather than replaces, heavier weapons in the troop. A patrol still needs machine guns and grenade launchers. But the point man's primary firearm must be quick. The CAR-15 is a solution designed by American engineers, but validated by a universal patrolman's logic: short, light, fast, familiar. At the strategic level, a weapon doesn't win a war by itself. But it can change what a unit dares to do, and how consistently it can do it. The Australian War Memorial Summary emphasises the SAS as the eyes and ears of one ATF, gathering route intelligence and reporting on enemy movement and installations. That intelligence directly supported larger operations, including major clearing efforts in difficult terrain. A compact carbine contributes to that mission in 3 strategic ways. First, it reduces the friction of movement. Less snagging, less fatigue, less noise. That translates into more ground covered, more observation time, and more confidence pushing into thick country. Second, it strengthens the break contact capability that keeps small patrols alive. If contact is survivable, commanders accept deeper reconnaissance. If contact is catastrophic, commanders grow cautious. A handy, rapid-firing carbine supports aggressive patrolling without requiring larger formations. Third, it reinforces interoperability with allied special operations. The CAR-15 family is part of a broader coalition special ops toolbox. The AWM summary notes exchange activity with American Special Forces. Australians joined Americans and vice versa. Shared platforms ease sharing of magazines, parts, handling familiarity, and training methods. None of this replaces the SAS's core advantage: fieldcraft, stealth, disciplined movement, but it sharpens the edge. It makes the first seconds of a compromise less chaotic. It helps a patrol speak with authority when it must speak with bullets. And in a conflict where intelligence and ambush dominated, that mattered. Production and service life. The CAR-15 Commando line was produced by Colt in the United States, with production of the Commando series ending around 1970, according to the CAR-15 overview. Variants matter because when people say CAR-15, they often mean a specific subset, particularly the XM177E1, XM177E2 pattern guns with short barrels and moderators. Wikipedia outlines the progression: early 10-inch versions, then the 11.5-inch versions intended to improve reliability and accommodate mounting systems like the XM148. Weaponsystems.net summarizes the Commando's limited but important service, adopted in small numbers by specialist U.S. units, with exports to Allied users in Asia and elsewhere. That export pattern is exactly how such weapons tend to show up in coalition contexts, especially among special operations forces who can justify niche gear by mission profile. For Australia, the CAR-15's service life story is less about formal nationwide adoption and more about special forces use, experimentation, and the broader transition toward shorter 5.56mm carbines over the following decades. And when you zoom out, the most important service life fact is this: the CAR-15 concept doesn't die in 1970. It mutates. Wikipedia traces the lineage forward, from early Commandos to later M16 carbines, then into the evolutionary pathway that leads to the M4 family. Source: so even where individual Vietnam-era guns disappear into armory ledgers, the idea remains: a compact 5.56 carbine as the Commando's primary arm. That is the CAR-15's real production legacy, less a single model, more a template. The CAR-15's legacy is written into modern carbines, collapsible stocks, compact barrels, modular accessories, and the assumption that special operations forces want rifle-caliber performance in a package that moves like an SMG. Wikipedia makes the continuity explicit. While Colt abandoned the CAR-15 modular system branding, it continued developing carbines and later produced models that fed into the M4's development arc. The name changes, the concept remains. American Rifleman also underlines something that collectors and historians sometimes overlook. The CAR-15 became an icon not because it was perfect, but because elite users built tactics and confidence around it. When a veteran calls a weapon his best friend and gives its serial number pride of place, that isn't advertising copy, it's a field relationship. For Australian SASR, the America's Commando Rifle Down Under story is ultimately about compatibility between mission demands and equipment design. Australian patrol doctrine already valued stealth, speed, and disciplined break contact. The CAR-15 family simply offered hardware that matched that philosophy. And in a wider sense, it foreshadowed the direction special forces across the world would take: shorter rifles, faster handling, modular add-ons, and a constant willingness to modify anything that gets in the way of the mission. 11.5 inches of barrel. A collapsing stock. A steel moderator that changed the rifle's voice. This was the weapon that let a patrol move faster when the jungle tightened. This was the weapon that answered contact with controlled violence, then vanished back into the green. This was the weapon that proved a commando's rifle isn't defined by nation, only by necessity. The Viet Cong had their ambushes. The Australians had their fieldcraft. But in those first seconds, when everything becomes noise, breath, and muzzle flash, the right carbine can tilt the balance. Back at Nui Dat, after the mortars, the sandbags still smelled of cordite. And that short black rifle didn't look mysterious anymore. It looked inevitable.